Learn switch statements in JavaScript. I have an example with if statements. In this block of code, you have two variables, food amount and dog name. And based on the dog name, we set the food amount and then we log to the console the message that your food is ready. So for example, if our dog name is Bob, our food amount is equal to 1 and we log to the console that your food is ready, Bob. Then if our dog name is equal to Gary, you see a message that have a nice meal, Gary. And then if we have a known name, so for example, Billy, we have the default case and the message default food amount for a new dog. This construction starts from the keyword if, and then each new case we write from the keyword else if. So for example, we might have much more other cases, and all of them we will write with the construction if, else if, and finally we write the else statement. So the else statement is some kind of default outcome if previous branches haven't been chosen yet. And here we have one problem that if we have many cases, it becomes difficult to read. So for maintaining this kind of structure, we have the switch statement. So let's rewrite the same code snippet using the switch statements. So I start from the keyword switch. Then I put parentheses, and inside of the parentheses, I doesn't put the condition, I put only the variable that I want to compare to other cases. So in this case, I will write just dog name. And then I put curly braces. So the beginning is the same as with if statements, but then we need to write different cases. For that, I write the keyword case. And then I write the name of the value when this case must be executed. So let's write Bob, then I put colon, and then on a new line, I can write this case. So we had food amount is equal to 1, and also console log. And now if we change the name of the variable dog name to the Bob, you see two messages in the console. So the first message is from the line 8. This is from our if statements. And the second message is from the line 20. This is from our switch case. Now you see that I don't put equal sign. So we omit the strict equal comparison because switch statements imply that you have this strict comparison. When you write case Bob, this is the same as writing dog name, then strict comparison to Bob. Then let's write the second case using the same pattern. Again, I start from the keyword case. Then I write the value of the dog name when this case must be executed. So I write Gary. And now I can write the content of this branch. So food amount is equal to 3 and then a new console log. And now if you save this file, you will see one strange thing. Now in the console we have this new message. So have a nice meal, Gary, even though that our dog name is equal to Bob. And this is because in switch case, if one condition is true, the first case checks that our dog name is equal to Bob. This is equal to true. Then it means that all the remaining code in the switch case will be executed. So no matter do we have the second case or the third case, all the block will be executed. And this is a behavior that we want to prevent because in switch case, we want to choose only one branch. And to prevent that, we need to add the break keyword to the end of the case. After our console log, let's write the break keyword. So this is the same keyword as we use in loops for finishing the execution of the loop. Essentially, it means exit. Now let's also add the break keyword after the second case. And finally, let's write our else statement. Our else statement is a default case. It doesn't compare the dog name to any value. And to represent it in switch cases, we have a default keyword. So now instead of the keyword case, let's write the keyword default. And then I put column without any value, and then I write the default case. In our case, I will write that food amount is equal to 2, and then a console log. And then in the end of the default case, I might write break keyword, but actually this keyword does nothing because right after the default case, we see the ending curly brace. It means that this is the end of our switch case and we anyway finish our switch case. But for the consistency, if you like, you can add this keyword. Let's change our doc name to a new one to check how our default case works. And now in the console, you see that default food amount for a new dog. So it means that our default case works correctly. I also want to clarify the most common mistakes that people do when write switch statements. The first one is to write any kind of comparison in the switch statement's parentheses. So here, when we have the dog name, you shouldn't write any comparisons like dog name equals to Billy or something like dog name is less than 0. It will not work with switch statements. We use switch statements only when we compare values with the strict equal sign. If you want to compare using the less or more operators, you must use if statements. So the second mistake is a little bit more complicated, and for that let's comment our switch case. Now we have only if statement block, and here let's change the second case. Let's change the name Gary to Bob. So now, what do you think we will have in the console if our dog name will be equal to Bob? Even though that we have two comparisons of dog name equals to Bob, we see only our first branch. And this is because we start a new statement from the keyword else. Else keyword is executed only when if statement is equal to false. So if instead of this comparison we have true, now you see that all this block becomes a little bit darker because Visual Studio Code shows that this block will never be executed. Now let's change this value to false. And now you see that the if statement will never be executed. I return back the keyword to true, and now let's see what happens if we delete the else keyword. Now you see that everything is okay, and if I save this file, you see two messages in the console. And this is because our first statement is equal to true, so we execute it, and then we don't have else keywords. So we start from the new if statement. So essentially this is the same as separating them into two different if statements, and here we check the condition that dog name is equal to Bob. This is also true, and this is the reason why we execute this body also. So let's change this true value to dog name equals to Bob, and you see that anyway we see two messages in the console. Here you need to understand that even though that you have the same comparison in if statements, your code can choose two branches. If you write it in the way if, then else if, else if, else if, and finally you write else statement, this is the block when only one branch will be chosen. So no matter which comparisons you have, only one branch can be chosen. This is the case when we can use switch statements for better readability. And now a small summary. All the time you can use only if statements. But if you have many values to compare, it will be difficult to maintain this code. And for better readability, you can use switch cases, especially if you have many values like 10 or more. Thanks for watching.